Okay, thank you for the offer, but we can't accommodate that. We're just going to proceed like it is. Thank you.
Technology stuff.
I beg your pardon?
Technology stuff.
Oh.
Attorney Meyer, can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Cobb, can you hear me? Mr. Cobb, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Hold on just for one moment. We're back on the record. It is almost 1:15. We have the time slot with the ODRC from 1 to 3 p.m. We will proceed at this time with the direct examination of Mr. Cobb. We can see and hear him by video. Attorney Myers, is there anything you would like to put on the record before we bring in the jurors? We'll note for the record that...
No, Your Honor.
Hold on just for one moment. We'll note for the record that we have Attorney Laprenzi present, we have Attorney Easter present, we have the defendant present, and of course you're present. So anything for the record before we bring in the jurors?
Your Honor.
Attorney Myers, go ahead. Anything for the record?
From me, Judge, not from Myers on behalf of Mr. Cobb, no.
Thank you very much. Okay. Attorney O'Brien?
Your Honor, I repeat my objection about having Mr. Cobb testify
From a remote location.
Okay. I'll note your objection. Thank you. For the reasons previously stated, we will proceed. Attorney Laprenzi, anything for the record before we bring in the jurors?
Just as a practical matter, we were asking to see if we could share to be able to show Mr. Cobb certain items, and I don't know if that was able to be accomplished.
Right, I think my staff tried to accommodate your request, but due to the fact that we only have 1 to 3 as a time slot, and I think you folks had been able to come in here and prepare, and the fact now that it's 1:15, based on the last minute request, you'll have to share the exhibits in a different format, okay?
Well, I guess, Judge, to say it was last minute, I guess we're concerned about that only because it's been Ring Central. Other times we've had Ring Central, I've been able to share on
Right,
Ring
but
Central.
also, hold on, before we get to that though, can you use the Elmo, or did you come in prior to 1 o'clock to try to test the system to be able to do that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, when did you
Well,
do that?
First of all, before we left, Ring Central wasn't up. I had it all ready to go.
Oh,
Came
okay.
in early. Once Ring Central got up, as soon as it was up, I tried it. There was no share screen.
Oh, okay.
And then I went immediately and said, hey, I need to share screen.
Oh,
and then
okay.
she's been working on it.
Okay, so are you able to do that then?
If there's a share screen,
Oh, well, of course, because with the Ring Central, I think we can do that. So you're prepared to do that?
yes, except for your Ring Central doesn't have that icon on here, and that's the issue.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought the issue was you didn't have the documents uploaded and able to share them. You're ready to
Everything's
go.
ready to go for me. It's the Ring
Okay.
Central issue.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so you're ready. Then what we'll do is, whatever then is needed, how many documents do you need to share?
It's not documents, Judge. It was the virtual video of the things to use for him instead of putting up the pictures and trying to do that. I thought it'd be easier just to put that video on, maybe freeze the screen so he could tell us where he was and things of that nature. But I
Oh.
can tell you, Judge, since we're already at 1:15, he's going to be coming back. I suppose if you give me leave to do that with him, I guess, so that we can work on this Ring Central thing and not burn up our time here, that I would be,
Okay, or if you're prepared, we can do that. What, to share the screen, what? We would invite them back in and then he can go?
I have to end the session and restart it.
Okay, all right. How long do you think that would take?
Probably a minute, however long it takes for ODRC to get him back.
Okay, and I think someone there said they were ready. So you'll be ready to go then, Attorney LaPrenzi?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, all right. Well then, we will do that briefly. I just know that the ODRC has been very patient with us. Originally, we reserved a time slot with them yesterday. They then accommodated us with today. So we appreciate the time at the ODRC. And in order to accommodate that screen share request by the state of Ohio, we'll be with you shortly. Attorney Myers, we appreciate your patience as well. Thank you. Okay. Then she can...
Okay, I'm gonna shut the system off. Is ODRC, can they hear me? Hello, I see someone else down there with Mr. Cobb. Are you able to get the IT room on the line?
It looks like Mr. Cobb is muted by the microphone icon.
For your patience, we'll have you be seated as you come in. Thank you. All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you can be seated as you come in. Thank you. All right, thanks everyone. You may be seated. It is 1:23 p.m. Attorney LaPrenzi, who does the state wish to call as its next witness?
We call Chad Cobb.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have Chad Cobb present with us by video telephone conference. He is currently in the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. I believe you folks all with your screens can see him. We also have Attorney Myers present with us. Attorney Myers is with us by video as well. Attorney Myers, in accordance with the discussions and hearing we had yesterday, we will go ahead and proceed at this time. What I will do for purposes of efficiency is if you have an objection that you would like to make for the record, please note with your hand and then we'll go ahead and address that. As you're aware, we do have a jury with us, and typically I handle objections in a sidebar format, so we'll go ahead and address anything if there's a concern. Anything you'd like to note for the record before we proceed, Attorney Myers? Go ahead. Whoops. Anything, Attorney Myers?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. All right, with that then, in accordance with an order in place as of July 31st, 2020, Mr. Cobb, would you please raise your right hand? I will swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony or statements you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Attorney LaPrenzi, anything you would like me to instruct the witness about before you proceed?
In regards to the juvenile witnesses,
Very good.
and I don't know if you want to
Thank
remind
you.
them of those other issues that we've discussed previously.
Okay. What we will do, first of all, Mr. Cobb, just so that you know, your minor children, including the minor child victim, GC, You are not to refer to her by her first name. Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
You will refer to all children by their initials. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Attorney LaPrenzi, anything else specifically? I know that Mr. Cobb heard me just talk to his lawyers in accordance with our procedures in hearings yesterday. Mr. Cobb, you are prepared to proceed, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. Attorney LaPrenzi, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Cobb. Too loud?
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
I'm okay. It's okay.
So, Mr. Cobb, for the record, go ahead and state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Chad Cobb, and my last name is spelled C-O-B-B.
And Mr. Cobb, how old are you?
38,
And what's your date of birth?
12882.
And Mr. Cobb, tell us, where did you grow up?
Enid, Oklahoma.
And how long did you live in Enid, Oklahoma?
8, 9 years,
And
give
then,
or take.
okay, and do you remember moving from Oklahoma?
I do.
Mr. Cobb,
Yes.
okay. And,
Yes, I remember moving up from Oklahoma. I'm sorry.
and where did you move to?
Easton, Ohio.
And when you moved to Ohio, did you live in the same place through your youth?
Yes.
And where was that? Not the address, just the general area.
Just farmhouse in the country.
Was there a city or a location or area?
Easton. The town's called Easton.
Okay. And who's your mom?
Cindy Cobb,
And who's your father?
Jay Cobb.
And do you have any siblings?
I do not.
When you were growing up, did you know somebody by the name of Mike Stefanko?
I did.
How'd you know Mike?
He was my next door neighbor.
And how long did you, were you friends or just neighbors?
We were friends.
Who is Ben Brinkman?
Ben Brinkman is another friend of mine. Went to high school together.
And did he ultimately get married? Did Mr. Brinkman?
Ben, yes.
Who was he married
Yes.
to? Who was he married to?
Mary Brinkman.
Okay. Mr. Cobb, where did you go to high school?
Doylestown High School.
And did you graduate?
Yes, sir.
And so was 12th grade your highest level of education?
Yes, sir.
What did you do after high school?
Joined the military.
How long were you in the military?
Not long at all. 6 months.
And why did you leave the military?
It's a complicated answer, I suppose, but it wasn't for me.
Okay. And so did you then go into the workforce?
Yes.
And what was your occupation or trade?
Laborer / mechanic until I got into telecommunications.
And when you got into, how old were you when you got into telecommunications?
That would have been November of 2004, so 22.
Okay. And when you got into telecommunications, how did that happen? Did you work for somebody?
I did. I answered an ad in the newspaper and just got lucky and got a job.
And as a result of getting into telecommunications business, Did you ultimately then learn a trade?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do with that?
Build a decent company. I mean, in my opinion.
So you went into business for yourself?
Yes. I mean, not immediately, but it took some years, but I ended up getting on my own 2 feet and having something pretty decent.
And tell us what that meant. I mean, having a business of your own, tell us the extent of it. Did you have employees?
Yes.
How many employees?
It depended on the project we had. I mean, I think the most I ever had was 12 to 13. And when I didn't have any, it was just me.
And what type of work did your company perform?
It would have been telecommunication, maintenance, and aerial construction.
Okay. Did Mike Stefanko work for you?
He did.
How long did he work for you?
Quite a while, on and off here and there, but for the majority, he was he was always there.
All right, let's change direction a little bit here. Do you know somebody by the name of Ashley Biggs?
I do.
How do you know Ashley Biggs?
It's Grace's mom.
GC's mom?
Yes, sir. It's GC's mom.
Okay. And how did you meet?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. How did you meet Ashley Biggs?
Roller skating.
And how old were you when you met Ashley?
It was after I came home from the military. GC was born in 05, so 2003-ish.
Okay, so you met her at...
So I would have been 20, 21, 22, somewhere around there.
Okay, so you met her at a roller rink. You started, were you friends or did you start dating right away?
We were friends.
And so did the relationship then develop?
Over time, mm-hmm.
And did you become, more than just friends?
Yes, sir.
So as you have already told us, from that relationship, GC was born. Yes?
Yes, sir.
And what was her date of birth?
GC,
Yes.
July 18, 2005.
And were you and Ashley still a couple when she was born?
Yes, sir.
How long after she was born did you stay a couple with Ashley?
Couple of months.
And then what happened?
She left us.
And what do you mean by that?
She pursued other directions other than Grace and I.
All right. And tell us what that means.
I know at one point in time, I know she joined the Army. She started pursuing other relationships, and Grace really just kind of seemed to be convenient for her whenever it was, and if it wasn't, then she just wasn't around. I mean, I'm not saying that to be harsh, but just...
And so basically, who would have been the caregiver for GC?
Myself.
And were you alone? Were you living with, well, let me ask you, did you do it alone?
For a decent amount of time, yes, sir.
Were you living on your own at that time, or were you living with your parents?
I was living on my own at that time.
So it was just you and GC?
Yes, sir.
Eventually, did you meet someone by the name of Erica Lyon?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
December of 2006.
And how did you meet Erica Lyon?
MySpace.
And once you met her, did you start a relationship with her?
Yes, sir.
And where did that relationship lead you?
To cohabitating and starting a family.
And so when did you guys start living together?
Fairly quickly. I met her in December 2006. I know I gave her keys to my apartment within a couple of weeks, and I think she ended up moving in within a year. I mean, yeah.
And had you already started your cable company or not yet?
Yeah. I was in cable, working for subcontracting for Time Warner when I met her.
Okay. And did you and Erica, well, first of all, what was Erica's highest level of education?
I know she graduated high school, and I know she's got a lot of college experience as well. I believe she's got a degree also.
All right. Do you know if she has a master's degree?
I don't think it's a master's degree. I think it's a bachelor's, if I remember right. I might be mistaken, but it's some type of college degree, I do know.
All right. And did you have any kids with Erica?
I'm sorry, did I have a what?
Any kids with Erica?
Yes, sir.
And when was your first child with Erica born?
That would have been FC, and she was born on November 19th of 2009.
All right. So about 3 years after you started your relationship with Erica.
Yes, sir.
And at some point, did you marry Erica?
Yes, sir.
And when would that have been?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't remember. If I'm guessing, I'm going to say 2010.
Okay.
But that's a date I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's all right. And did you have any other children with Erica?
Yes, sir. KC, and his birthday is April 4th, 2012.
All right. And would that have been after you were married?
Yes, sir.
So you've told us that you and Ashley had a child together named JC, and that she ultimately, after you broke up after a couple months, basically left the picture. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And when she left, who took over the role, if anyone, as her mother, as GC's mother?
When Ashley left and I was with Erica, Erica took over the role as mom.
At some point in time, were you made aware in some fashion that Ashley came back into the picture?
Yes, sir.
How were you made aware?
I remember when there was a lot of in and out with Ashley. Sometimes she'd be around and sometimes she wouldn't. It'd be very sporadic. And when we broke up, she moved. I don't even know where she moved, but I started openly dating again. So, and her coming back, there were times where, like, Erica and Ashley would both be around. So even though Erica's mom, Ashley's was still there, but she didn't actually take off for good, I think, until she joined the Army or something like that, because it was around September 2009, if I recall, where she was just gone, and I had no idea where she was. But prior to that, I know she'd be in like Ohio or surrounding states or something like. Sometimes I get an email or a phone call or something, because sometimes she would keep in touch just to see how Gracie was doing, but then sometimes she wouldn't.
So let's go ahead, just go to 2009. So sometime in 2009 through 2012, at least the first part of 2012, there was no contact from Ashley to you or to GC.
Yes, sir. September 2009 to October 5th, 2011, there was no contact.
And you said October 5th, 2011. Why does that stick out in your mind?
That's when Gracie was taken from school.
So tell us about that.
Ashley Biggs, her girlfriend Brittany Dunson, and their brother Daniel Dunson somehow was able to get, I think it was a civil protection order to get Grace, or to assume custody of Grace. And they took her. She was gone.
So how did you find out?
I went to pick up the kids from school, and Erica called me and told me that they got Grace. And by they, she meant that Ashley and Brittany.
As a reminder, Mr. Cobb, please refer to the minor child as GC. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that on purpose. Whenever I'm so used to saying my daughter's name, so I'm trying to keep up with the initials. My apologies.
So once you found out that they had come and taken GC was it from school?
Yes, sir.
And did you go to the school to pick her up?
I went to the school to pick her up, and when I went into the gymnasium, GC wasn't there, but AG was, and AG was in tears, and there was a police officer standing there with some paperwork. It was Miss Shannon Gerber, and she explained to me that a civil protection order was issued, and I wasn't allowed to see GC or try to find out where GC was, and there was no contact to be had between me and Ashley during it. And it was literally a shock. It came out of nowhere.
So as a result of that, what did you do?
I remember I was talking to the principal, and I tried explaining the situation, or I tried finding out the situation, like how in the world could this happen, because a lot of traumatic things have happened to GC in the past, and the school was made aware of all the traumatic history and use and what have you, so it was a shock that this happened. When I found out and talked to the principal, she told me she was so blown away by the situation, she didn't even think to call me or anybody. The following day, I was up at the courthouse.
So you hired an attorney?
Yes, sir.
And you proceeded through a legal course to get your daughter back?
Yes, sir.
And how did that custody situation go?
Very, very strangely.
Okay.
It lasted 9 months. That little girl went through hell with what was going on. There was abuse. The magistrate put her in the home of a registered sex offender, and everything just got very weird and hectic and stressful and chaotic and so forth.
Were you able to get GC back?
During the custody dispute, it took some months before any of my family was able to see GC again. I think it took 3 or 4 months. Well, 'cause I remember not seeing her for the holidays. At some point in time, there was visitation allowed for my family and I from the Biggs Dunson household.
So after being with GC for 6 years every day, all of a sudden you weren't able to see her for 3 months.
That's correct.
What was your relationship at that point with Ashley?
It was non-existent before she left. When she came back and we had our first court hearing, I remember seeing her up at the courthouse, and it was truly the first time I've seen her in 3 years. And I remember walking up to her, and I extended my hand out and shook her hand. I was like, "It's good to see you that you're back." And I told her that how you went about getting Grace was kind of messed up, but, good you're back. Actually, I asked her out to dinner to Luigi's Pizza down the road. Because, in my mind, that, she came back and great. And if we're going to, if she's going to be a part of Grace's life, let's everybody do the right thing and let's move forward and, make it work.
That didn't happen.
That was my...
Did that happen?
No. She didn't take me up on my offer for dinner. And we continued through the very, very strange court process.
So during that period of time, you were married to Erica, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned Brittany. Had you ever met Brittany before then?
No, sir.
So the first time you meet Brittany is when?
Really don't remember the first time I met Brittany. I remember seeing her, in court, because Ashley would come to court, and I remember, Brittany being there and introducing herself to the magistrate or what have you. But as far as actually ever meet, I don't know her, and I never met her before, and actually I never had a formal introduction either.
And what was your understanding of their relationship?
The Ashley and Brittany's relationship?
Yes.
They were girlfriends.
As it progressed, what was your emotional state like as the court and custody hearings or battle continued?
It was very difficult.
Okay.
A lot of things kept happening that it's hard to explain. I mean, poor GC would have bruises or bite marks or tattoos over her private areas and horrible stories of being forced to disrobe and not to mention Daniel grabbing her legs and screaming at her, to be quiet, not say anything. When all these things were brought up to the court, it just got when it got brought up to Tracy Stoner, it just got very confusing to why she didn't do anything to help my child. And in fact, I actually asked. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I actually asked Miss Tracy Stoner, magistrate. I was like, "You got to do something to save my kid. There are some serious things going on here." And she either didn't believe me or didn't take anything for face value when there's so much overwhelming proof, pictures and Grace herself, and it just went nowhere. So it was really confusing that just nothing happened.
And
no help was offered to Grace. GC, shoot, sorry.
And was Erica involved during this custody dispute?
Yes, sir.
Was she aware of these things that you're telling us about?
Yes, sir.
At some point in time, were you also made aware of things that Grace was enduring from Erica?
I was made aware, sir.
Okay. Now, let's move ahead to June of 2012. All right? You with me?
Yes, sir.
In June, was there any court hearings or anything that happened of significance?
In June, were there any court hearings?
Or rulings by the court of any significance?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I know we were going to court. I couldn't tell you if there was a specific ruling in June or if there wasn't. I don't remember.
All right, so nothing stands out in your mind.
I'm sorry, sir, but no, sir.
So let's move now to June 20th, 2012. Did you work that day?
I remember we were setting up for a job.
And let's talk about that evening. Where were you that evening? Earlier in the evening.
Early in the evening, I was home.
And who were you with?
Earlier in the evening, I was home with everybody, Erica and the children.
And how many children lived with you at that time?
4.
And one was GC, is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And then you already told us that you had 2 children with Erica.
Yes, sir.
And then who was the 4th? Using initials.
AG.
Okay.
AG.
And so the 4 of you were home.
Yes.
At any time, did that group change? Was there a time where some
Yes.
of those people left? All right, so who would have left?
Erica, AG, and KC.
And do you recall, if you know, what time of the evening that would have been?
I don't recall the exact time. I want to say dusk or the sun was still out. I don't exactly recall the time.
Okay. And during that time of year of June, it would have been light longer in the day? Or later in the day? Is that fair?
Sure.
So at some point in time, did you get a phone call?
Yes, I did.
Who was that from?
That was from Erica.
And as a result of that phone call, did you do anything?
Yes, sir.
What did you do?
I was told to grab something
Good.
and go
Hold on.
to.
Hold on. Hold on, Mr. Cobb. Attorney LaPrenzi, did you want to rephrase that? Or do you want to, can you finish your question then, and then Attorney O'Brien can make his objection?
Judge, I'd rather he didn't.
Oh, you'd rather Attorney
Don't.
LaPrenzi,
When he comes back, I'll be super.
you'd rather Attorney LaPrenzi?
Did not finish that question.
Okay, well, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, let me just repeat the question to the court.
Thank you so much.
The question was, as a result of that phone call, what did you do?
I see. Okay.
Objection.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. The objection is overruled. He can talk about what he did next.
In a rare moment, I'm going to agree with Mr. O'Brien. I think the problem was he said I was told, and that's what our concern. So if you could remind him of that concern of any conversations he might have had.
I understand that. Like I just indicated, he can discuss what he did next, and I'll remind the witness. Thank you. That last statement is stricken, Attorney O'Brien. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Cobb, you can discuss in accordance with the question was just asked and the ruling. what you did as asked by Attorney LaPrenzi.
Mr. Cobb, did you hear the court?
I'm sorry, when the judge talks, it's real tinny. It's difficult to, I can hear you very clearly, but when she speaks, it is difficult to understand what she's saying. It just sounds like she's in a can.
Do you need the judge to repeat?
Ma'am, if I may trouble you to repeat, I couldn't hear the question if you asked me one.
I didn't ask you a question. I sustained the objection in part and overruled it in part. Attorney LaPrenzi, why don't you go ahead and ask the question again and instruct the witness that he is to answer your question just the way that you asked it, not what he was told. Thank you.
You understand, Mr. Cobb?
Could you clarify it for me, sir?
I'm just asking you, as a result of the call, what did you actually do?
I left the house. As a result of the phone call that came in, ultimately I ended up leaving our residence.
All right, and who, was it just you or did you take anybody with you?
The girls.
And what vehicle did you use?
My pickup truck?
And was that a truck that you used for work?
No, sir. Well, sometimes, but not generally.
All right, you had other work vehicles, is that fair?
Yes, sir.
What other vehicles did you have as personal vehicles?
Lincoln Navigator,
What color was it?
black,
What year was it?
2008.
And was there a car that you usually used? Who usually used the truck?
Me,
Who usually used the Lincoln?
Erica.
So on this occasion, you left in the truck. Where did you go?
I went to my father's company in Norton.
And what's the name of that company?
It was called Midco.
All right, Mr. Cobb, I'm going to attempt to share the screen with you here so you can see something I'm going to show you, okay? So bear with me a second.
Yes, sir.
Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
And let's see, I'm not sure how we... There, can you see that full screen now?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
can you tell us what we're seeing here?
That would be my father's company. That would be the location where my father used to have a company.
All right. And so that's Mitco. Fair?
Yes, sir.
And you
Yes,
said
sir.
you went to Mitco, and what did you do when you got there?
Parked in the back parking lot.
And why did you do that?
That's
Well, so let's strike
Honestly, why
that.
you parked.
Strike that. When you parked back there, what's the next thing to happen?
Erica showed up.
And what did you do when she showed up?
Myself and the girls ended up getting into the Lincoln.
And what seat did you get in?
The passenger seat.
At that point, what's the next thing that happened?
She started driving up to Akron.
And where did you go?
She went up to Akron and ended up driving past Ashley's place of work.
And were you aware of where Ashley worked at that time?
Yes, sir.
And where was she working?
She was working at a pizzeria place.
What was the name of it?
believe Domino's.
And do you know where it was located?
It was located in Portage Lakes Plaza.
And do you know what roads that's on?
I believe it's South Main Street and 619.
I'm going to share my screen with you again. Can you see that or no?
No, sir. All I have is you three, Myers, yourself, and the judge.
Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. A image is popping up. It shows a Domino's and a Bueller's.
All right. So does that appear to be the Domino's that you were aware she worked at?
Yes, sir.
And is that the one you described in that plaza?
Yes, sir.
Now I'm going to let this video play for a second. You said you drove toward where Ashley worked. What happened? Did you actually get to where Ashley worked?
I was not driving to where Ashley worked. Erica ended up driving past where Ashley worked and pointing out her vehicle.
What road were you on when you went by Domino's?
South, I believe it's South Main Street. It would be the road that's
Here, I'm gonna,
on that.
okay, do you see the intersection?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize that intersection?
I believe that intersection is South Main Street and West Turkey Foot Lake Road.
So is this, which one is which? I'm indicating with the arrow.
Your arrow that's moving would be South Main Street.
Okay. And you drove by the Domino's, and were you able to notice whether Ashley's car was there or not?
I wasn't driving, sir.
No, I'm asking you though, could you see? Could you see
I'm sorry, what was
the question is, as you drove by Domino's, could you see whether Ashley's car was there or not?
Yes, sir. She pointed it out.
Okay, so you saw Ashley's car.
Yes, sir.
Did you go into the parking lot at all?
No, sir.
And so as you drove by Domino's, where did you go next?
She made a right on 619.
So were you heading this direction initially on South Main, going south?
Yes, sir. She was driving down South Main Street, and then she made a right onto 619.
Is that how the arrow is going? Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
And then how far down 619 did you get?
She ended up pulling in to an unfamiliar parking lot that was close to the turnoff to my grandparents' house. How far down the road from that intersection, I'm not sure, but I know the parking lot that she pulled into is quite close to the turnoff by my grandparents' house.
How far would you say the parking lot is from your grandparents' house?
I'm sorry, I'm not very good at distances, but it's just...
How about time?
Less than a mile.
Okay, how about time?
I would assume it's less than a mile and a half.
How much time would it take you to get from that parking lot to your grandparents' house?
A couple minutes, maybe 2 minutes.
And what street do your grandparents live on? Or did they?
Rexley Road.
Okay. Can you see the picture on the screen now?
No, sir, it's the three of you, but it seems to be that there's a picture trying to come up.
How about now?
A picture's coming up.
Let me know when you see it.
I see a photo.
And do you recognize that?
From the angle, it doesn't. I see a building and I see a parking lot.
Okay, it's all right. I'm gonna play the video for you and tell me if you then recognize it.
I know that parking lot.
Tell me about, how do you know that parking? Is that the parking lot?
It's the parking lot where Ashley died. Yes, sir.
So you passed the Domino's, drove to 619, pulled in this parking lot. What part of the parking lot did you guys end up in?
She ended up pulling in the back.
Into the back here?
Yes, sir.
And do you know, were you parked in one of these spots back here? And we'll see it here in a second.
I remember she pulled off into one of the areas over on the left.
In one of these parking spots.
I don't.
If you don't know or don't remember, that's fine. Just the best of your recollection.
I know she was over on the left.
All right. When you got to the parking lot and parked, what did you do, if anything?
I got out of the truck. I'm sorry, I got out of the Lincoln.
Okay. And did anybody else get out of the Lincoln?
I got out because Erica kept going off about.
Well,
Ashley.
Mr. Cobb, let's not talk about what Erica said, okay? I want you to tell us.
Hold on, just for one moment, Attorney LaPrenzi.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
The objection is sustained and the statement is stricken.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Cobb, do you understand? We're not going to talk about what Erica said. Understood?
I understand. I'm sorry.
So you get out of the car. You said you got out for whatever reason. You get out of the car. Does anybody else get out of the car?
Yes, Erica gets out of the car, and
Okay, so let me
I
ask
ended
you.
up.
Let me ask you questions, okay? When you get out of the car,
Yes, sir.
when you get out of the car, where do you go?
I remember walking over to a tree that was on the other side of the parking lot.
When you say are you talking about on this side here? Give me a direction. Straight ahead, right, left?
I'm sorry, sir, but I have the black screen. There's no picture on there. But from where the Lincoln was parked, if my bearings are correct, it would have been a tree on the east side.
So do you see the picture now?
No, sir.
Okay, what do you just see a blank screen?
Yes, sir. It's just a black rectangle.
All right, let me redo this, see if this will work. Can you see it now? Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Hold on. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. The parking lot is back up and back to a black screen.
So it came up and then went black?
It's back up now.
Okay. So you're saying to the right of this parking lot or to the left?
It would have been to the right, sir.
So if I scan here, What tree are you talking about?
I remember a tree being closer.
Okay. So either way, you were under a tree. Is that, you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Were you alone or was somebody else with you?
Erica was with me.
And did you have a conversation under that tree?
Yes, I did.
After that conversation, did you stay there at the tree with Erica, or
Yes,
did one
sir.
of you leave the tree?
Erica left and walked back over to the Lincoln.
All right. So when she walked over to the Lincoln, what did she do?
She made a phone call.
And could you hear that phone call?
I could hear bits and pieces, but not the entire thing.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Mr. Cobb, on this occasion, you're going to be allowed to answer this following question. What did you hear Erica say on that phone call?
Objection.
Overruled.
I remember her saying somebody else's name. I remember it was a Jennifer or Katie, and it was Mick something. Like how you say McDonald's, I don't remember what she said the last name was. And I remember she ordered a pizza. And I remember it struck me as bizarre because she ordered a half pepperoni and mushroom pizza.
And when she ordered the
And she
pizza,
was smiling.
I'm sorry?
She was smiling.
Objection, non-responsive. Motion to strike.
Sustained. It's stricken.
Where was she when she made the phone call?
Over by the Lincoln,
Do you know what phone she was using?
I don't.
Was it a phone you gave her?
We had a bunch of phones at the house. I don't know which one she was using.
Did you give her a phone on that occasion?
No, sir. We had a bunch of phones. We had a number of cell phones at the house for the employees. I don't know which one she took.
My only question to you is, did you hand her a phone that evening?
No, sir.
After she made the phone call, what did you do?
I was still over by the tree.
Were the kids all still in the car when she made the phone call?
Yes, sir.
As far as you know, did the kids ever leave the car?
No, sir.
What's the next thing you did?
I stayed at the tree and Erica walked back over.
Did you have another conversation?
Yes, sir.
After that conversation was done, what did you do next?
I was still at the tree. And Eric, I was still at the tree and Erica went in the vehicle and left.
And when she left, you were there without a vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And what happened next?
A short time later, Ashley showed up.
And what was she driving?
What was she driving?
Yes.
Her car.
And did her car have any Domino's, I guess, markings on it?
No, sir.
Where were you when you first saw the car?
Somewhere I think I was just walking around in circles. So I remember I was fairly close to the tree.
And you knew that Ashley was on her way there, didn't you?
After Erica made that phone call and came over.
So you were waiting for Ashley? Yes?
Sir, I wasn't necessarily waiting for Ashley. I was stuck there.
And so Ashley showed up to deliver the pizza,
Yes, sir.
and did you then engage her at some point in time or place in that parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Where did you first encounter, well, first of all, where did she park?
Quite close to where Erica had the Lincoln, in the same area. She pulled in, she circled, and I remember her car had the headlights facing towards 619.
So she came in, turned around, and was facing this direction then?
Yes, I remember her car being up more.
Okay. And where were you when she got out of the car?
I remember I was somewhere on the other side of the parking lot, but as I was approaching and it made myself known up towards her car.
And how did Ashley respond when she saw you there?
Worked up.
And I'm assuming you were not surprised that she was worked up.
With everything that was going on, looking back, she wasn't happy to see me, that's for certain.
Did you have any intentions of buying that pizza that night?
I didn't know it was ordered, and I had no intention of buying it, or buying one.
You didn't know it was ordered? I thought you said that Erica ordered a pizza on the phone.
Yes, sir, but up until that point, I didn't know that she was going to be doing so.
All right. Is it fair to say that Ashley did not leave that parking lot alive that night?
Yes, sir, that is accurate.
What were you wearing when Ashley showed up?
I'm sorry, sir, your image froze. I heard, what were you wearing, but then nothing, you didn't say anything else, it froze.
What were you wearing when Ashley showed up?
I was still in my work clothes, Cobb cable shirt, camouflage pants and jacket, work boots.
And did you have duct tape on your coat?
I did.
And it was a camouflage coat that matched the pants?
One more time, please.
Did the camouflage pants match the camouflage coat?
Yes, sir.
And you had camouflage belt on?
I don't remember what kind of belt I had on, but I usually wore a belt, yes, sir.
And what did you have with you?
I might have had my wallet. I know I had my work taser on me, and I know I had my diving knife on me.
At some point in time, did you make a phone call?
Yes, sir.
And who did you call?
I called my wife.
Erica?
Yes, sir.
And when you called her, then what happened?
She showed up.
Erica showed up. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What did you do with Ashley's body?
When I had to leave, I picked her up and put her in the car.
Whose car?
Ashley's car,
What part of the car did you put her in?
in the back seat.
And when you put her in the back seat, did she have anything on her that was placed on her that she didn't have on her when she arrived?
Yes, there was.
What was on her?
a zip tie.
How many?
I only remember one. I remember one around her neck.
So how did you lift her into the car?
How did I, what to the car, sir?
How did you lift her into the car?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer that.
That's okay.
I
Let me
remember-
ask another question. How tall was Ashley?
She's a little shorter than me, so 5'8", 5'7"-ish.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
And is she how is she built? Big, small, medium?
She's a hefty and strong.
So was it difficult for you to get her into the car?
Yes, sir.
So did you use the zip ties to lift her?
No, sir.
When you got her into the car, what did you do next?
I remember I struggled. She was heavy to get in the car, but I had to leave.
Why did you have to
And,
leave?
There were some things that happened, and it's hard to explain, but the only thing in my mind at that time was I had to leave, and I couldn't leave Ashley there.
So you left. Where did you go?
I drove home. Not to my house, though. I drove to a bridge.
And where was the Lincoln at this point in time? As you left this parking lot, where was the Lincoln?
Right in front of Ashley's car. I mean, not directly in front of it, but it was right there.
I'm sorry, right where?
Where Ashley's car was, well, the Lincoln was in front of it.
Okay. And so when you left the parking lot, was the Lincoln in front of you or behind you?
When I left the parking lot, the Erica and the Lincoln were behind me.
Okay. And you drove to where?
To a bridge. A bridge behind my mother and father's farmhouse.
Let me go back a little, just a tiny bit here. I overlooked something. When Erica, you said you called your wife and she came back. When she came
Yes.
back, was Ashley already in the car or not?
She was not.
So Ashley was on the ground.
Yes, sir.
All right. So you went to this bridge. How far away is this bridge from this location here on West Turkey Foot Lake Road?
An approximate guess, maybe half an hour.
And you went there because why?
Well, I went there because that's Ashley and I's bridge that we used to hang out when we were dating. Erica went there because she was following me.
Can you see the video on the screen?
Yes, sir. It looks like a cornfield.
Okay, I'm going to let this play here for a second. Tell me if you recognize this.
Sir, that looks like the section of field that's next to the bridge.
All right, now I'm gonna let this run a little further. All right, do you see this white vehicle here?
I can.
Do you recognize this area here?
Yes, sir, that looks like the section of field that's next to the bridge.
All right.
That surrounds the bridge.
So would the bridge you're talking about, cross this little stream here?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize this road here?
I believe that's the road that runs right alongside of Trusco.
All right, and is that a company, Trusco?
Yes, sir, it's a lumber yard.
Okay. And so when you pulled in to this bridge, you said it was your and Ashley's bridge?
I didn't own it, but when we were dating, that's one of the spots we used to hang out at. It's just a little bridge not too far away from my mom and dad's property. That's just a nice place to hang out.
So was there some sentimental reason you went to this bridge?
It's our bridge, and that's why I drove there. It's very difficult to explain. That was a very difficult night.
All right.
But the reason I drove is because it's a place where we hung out.
Okay.
Safe.
So now, as you can see, this is panning. Where would your parents' home be?
Towards the top left-hand corner of the image that I see.
Over in this area somewhere?
Give or take, yeah, right, yeah, yes, sir, right about there.
So can you get to their house from this bridge?
Yes, sir.
How would you do that?
You'd have to drive through a field. You could easily walk, but if you needed to, you could drive. It's just a short hike away.
There's no road from that bridge to your parents' house. Is that fair?
No, sir.
Okay. And so, when you got to the bridge, where did you go?
I was at the bridge for a moment. Erica was behind me, and I kept driving through the cornfield until I couldn't drive anymore.
And then, where was the Lincoln when you drove over the bridge?
Still by the bridge.
So the Lincoln stayed by the bridge? The Lincoln.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Lincoln stayed by the bridge and you kept driving?
Yes, sir.
And you drove, and do you recall where you drove to?
Where the image is panning, I kept driving down the edge of the field until I couldn't go any further.
If I told you that her vehicle was located in this little section right here, would you have any reason to disagree with that?
No, sir.
And you said you couldn't drive any further. At this location here, is there water here?
Yes, sir. That's Chippewa Creek.
Okay. So if you kept driving, you'd end up either in the trees or in the creek?
Yes, sir.
All right. When you got to this location, what did you do?
I parked the car and I left. I started walking back up towards the bridge.
Okay. And when you walked, now this field at that time, did it have corn in it?
I believe so.
Do you remember if it was cut or if it had already been cut or if it was just starting to grow?
I'm sorry, I don't remember. I don't remember.
How high was it?
I'm sorry, I don't remember paying that much attention to the corn. I don't know its height.
Okay. And so why did you leave the car over here as far as you could go in a cornfield as opposed to by the bridge?
I kept driving in the cornfield because Erica pulled up behind me in the Lincoln when I was at the bridge. I remember seeing her headlights and...
So why didn't you leave? Go ahead.
I had to get away from her. At the time I was trying to just get somewhere safe, and the bridge is where I went. I remember seeing Erica in the rearview mirror, and I just kept driving.
And you didn't put the car here to hide it from being discovered and found?
No, no, sir.
When you walked back through the field, which way did you walk? Did you walk along the line here, or did you cut through the field?
I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of both. I remember seeing the headlights of the Lincoln, and I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I remember just walking towards the Lincoln with Erica. I don't remember the exact path that I traveled.
And is it fair to say that would be a long walk?
Yes, sir.
And this would be where the car would have been? Oop, I guess I missed that. And this would have been where the car was the Lincoln was?
Yes, sir.
All right. When you got back to this car, what did you do?
When I got back to the Lincoln,
Yes, sir.
I remember I got in the passenger seat and Erica drove home to our residence at Mount Eaton.
When you got to Mount Eaton, well, let me go back. After putting Ashley in her car, was there blood on you?
Yes, sir.
Was she bleeding?
Yes, sir.
And did you have blood on your hands?
Yes, sir.
And was that obvious?
It would have to be, sir.
So you get back in the Lincoln and you go back to Mount Eaton. When you get back to Mount Eaton, I'm assuming that Erica and the kids are all still in the car, correct?
Yes, sir.
So when you get back, what do you do?
When we get back to the residence,
Yes.
ultimately I ended up taking a shower.
Okay. And why did you take a shower?
I remember I was told I was messy.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
To strike.
Overruled.
So you were messy, you took a shower.
Yes, sir.
And of course you had blood on you, you said earlier, right?
Yes, sir.
Were you concerned at this point in time about getting caught?
That wasn't even a thought in my head.
Okay.
There was too much. I was kind of in. There was just too much.
So when you got home, what did you do with your clothes?
I remember I took him off in the backyard by the Lincoln.
What'd you do with your taser?
I don't remember.
You said you took your clothes off by the Lincoln. Where was the Lincoln parked?
Down by the garage.
All right, so if we're looking, can you see the picture?
Yes, sir.
So is this your house?
Yes, sir.
And where would the garage be?
The garage would be in the back.
Back here?
No, sir. That way. The garage that's actually attached to the house.
Okay, so let's play this here a little bit and you can tell me. Okay, so where is this garage?
Close to where your arrow is, on that corner. Yes, sir.
All right, and so
At the top.
go ahead.
I was just going to say at the time, there was a demolition derby car I was working on right next to the garage. I remember when Erica pulled in, it was somewhere around that area.
All right, and so you took your clothes off outside?
Yes, sir.
And what'd you do with your knife?
I don't remember. I remember taking everything that I had off and just throwing it on the ground before I went inside.
All right, and I'm going to show you here, or ask you, do you recognize this area back here?
That's the back of our property.
All right,
or
now
the back of our residence at the time.
Now, I realize this might not be exactly how it was at the time, but this right here, do you know what that is?
The burn pile pit.
Okay.
A burn pile pit.
And was there a burn pile pit there back in 2012 when this happened?
Yes, sir. I had a burn pile pit in the back.
Okay.
When I lived there, yes, sir.
And over here, was there some kind of a animal pen?
Yes, sir. There was the chicken coop there.
Okay. And did you have a work table out back?
Yes, I did.
And why did you have the work table out back?
The chicken coop was under construction.
All right. At any time, did you take and place the items that you discussed, your clothing and the knife and the taser, did you ever place them back here on that table?
No, sir. I took off my clothes by the Lincoln.
After you took the shower, about what time, if you know, would this have been?
I'm not sure on time. I know it would have been late. I know I was in the shower for a while. I don't know. I don't know time. Sometime late at night or early in the morning.
All right. And would it be fair to say that, well, what were the ages of your kids at that time in 2012?
2 months, 2.5 years, 6 and 6.
Is it fair to say that it was significantly later than a child of those ages should have been up?
Yes, sir.
So after you get out of the shower, are the kids still up?
I don't remember seeing them, so I couldn't tell you if they were up or where they were at that time.
So what did you do? Did you go to bed?
No, sir.
What did you do?
Forgive my hesitation. I know some things I can say and spousal privilege, and I'm just trying to not
Mr.
say
Cobb.
something that I'm going to get.
Okay, so Mr. Cobb, hold on, let me clarify. I'm asking you what you did, not why you did it. Okay?
Yes, sir.
What did you do?
I know we ended up going back up to Akron.
Who's we?
All of us, Erica and the children.
And when you went back to Akron, what were you going to do? Let me clarify that. You said you were going back up to Akron. Where in Akron specifically were you going?
Back to the scene where Ashley died.
And why were you going to the scene where Ashley died?
Somebody wanted her cell phone and to clean things up because somebody asked me if it was as messy as I was.
Hold on just for one moment. Attorney LaPrenzi, what was the question?
The question was, why were you going back?
Okay.
No,
Attorney
I'm
O'Brien?
sorry. The question was, what were you going back to do?
Okay, all right. And Attorney Brian, you're seeking to strike any statements about, he said, what did he reference? Someone said or told?
Correct, Your Honor.
That objection is sustained, that statement is stricken.
All right, Mr. Cobb, do you understand the court's ruling?
I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't hear her when she was speaking.
All right, she sustained this defense's objection to your answer because of how you answered it. Do you understand?
I'm sorry. I was trying not to say any names. I'm sorry.
It's not about names, okay? So you went up to this location where Ashley died to clean up and get a phone. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Were there cleaning supplies to clean up with in the Lincoln?
Yes, sir.
And I guess I should have asked you, what vehicle did you take to go back to the scene?
The Lincoln.
And your truck was still where?
At my dad's shop.
And I'm sorry, what was your answer about the cleaning supplies in the back of the Lincoln? Were there cleaning supplies in the back of the Lincoln?
Yes, sir.
Did you put them there?
Two people put those in the back.
All right. You put some of the supplies back there?
Yes, sir.
All right. So when you got back, who drove?
I believe at that time I was driving, sir.
All right, so you drive back to the scene with the cleaning supplies. When you get there, what happens? Or do you get there?
No, sir. We ended up driving past the scene.
Why?
I remember there was law enforcement there.
And when you drive past, what do you do then?
We ultimately ended up at my grandmother's residence.
So you drove past, did you turn around and came back toward your grandparents?
There was no turning around. Because when we were driving past, I remember it being pointed out, an officer with his flashlight on the ground, and we just kept driving and then made a left going down to my grandmother's.
So you passed heading west?
Yes, sir.
All right, and so you passed it, went right to your grandmother's house. Why did you go to your grandmother's house? Why didn't you go home?
I'm not sure. I pulled into grandma's house. safe space.
All right, so you go to your grandmother's house, which you've already told us is very close.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you here. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's my grandmother's house.
All right.
The home of my grandparents.
All right. And I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. And in relation to the crime scene, it would have been over in this direction over here. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you get to your grandmother's house, where do you go?
Down to. We were in the parked right behind where that silver car is.
Yes.
At first.
Okay.
A law enforcement cruiser drove past the front of the house, and we ended up pulling in back behind the barn that's on the bottom of the hill.
All right. So the silver car you're talking about was over here to the left. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And this is like a parking pad or space that goes into a garage?
Yes, sir.
All right. So after the cruiser goes by, why do you move?
I don't want to say something and break
All right, then don't say it. That's okay. So
I don't know how to answer that question.
then don't answer it.
Yes, sir.
All right. So is this the building here you talked about as the barn?
Yes, sir.
And we're gonna move down here. And when you get down here, when you drive down here, how do you park? Which direction?
I remember we were in front of the barn at first. Again, a cruiser ended up coming down to where that silver car was. And I remember what direction it was facing. I want to say headlights pointing towards the gravel.
So when you say toward the gravel, the back of the car would have been this way and the front would have been this way?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you recall how long you sat there?
I do not.
Was it seconds, minutes, half hour?
Half an hour, maybe more would probably be accurate.
Okay. And who was with you?
Erica and the children.
And were the children sleeping or were they awake?
I remember FC was awake.
And how old was FC at the time?
2.5.
Okay. All right. And so at some point in time, or, well, I guess I should have asked, did you and Erica stay awake that whole time?
Yes, sir.
At some point in time, does anybody leave that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Who leaves?
I did.
And where did you go?
I ended up walking into the tree line a couple dozen feet.
Is this over here to the left?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think, again, I don't know that this is the same as it was back then, but I'm going to let you take a look. So at the time, back in 2012, was this all cleared out like this back then, or was it all grown up? If you remember.
I remember there's the tree line. It's not real. It looks about the same.
Okay. And so this is the tree line you talked about, and you went into here, somewhere.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's all right. And what did you do once you got in there?
Once I was in the tree line,
Yes.
I just stood there.
And how long were you there?
Not very long. I ended up being arrested quite rapidly.
And was the reason you left the car because the police were coming around the side of the building? Or coming down the driveway?
I don't think that can be answered without breaking the spousal thing.
All right.
When the police came down, I don't know how to answer that question.
All right, so you didn't leave the vehicle until the police came down, or were released on your grandparents' property, is that fair?
Yes, sir, that's fair. Yes, sir.
And so, of course, it didn't take long for them to find you.
No, sir.
There was stick figure family on the back, decals on the back of the Lincoln, on the back windshield. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Those stickers were altered at that location, is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Who altered those?
That was me. I remember taking them off of the back.
Was that prior to the police showing up?
Yes, sir.
So did you get out of the car 2 times?
No, sir. When I got out of the vehicle, Erica and I were both out of the vehicle, and neither one of us got back in that I recall.
All right. So when did you alter?
We did.
So you altered these stickers when?
When we were out of the vehicle, I remember thinking my family was broken and just taking them off the Lincoln, and there was a fence post and just sticking them on there.
And which of the?
There's a
Go ahead.
on the back of my grandparents' barn. I remember like ladders and maybe some wood. There was a couple of vinyl fence posts, and I was taking off the stickers at the back of my Lincoln because I felt like my family was broken, and I was taking them off, and I stuck them on the closest thing that just happened to be right there, and that happened to be the fence post. The Lincoln was parked right next to the barn.
And the 2 stickers that you took off portrayed which people?
I don't even remember. I remember starting to take them off, and I didn't finish for whatever reason.
All right. So if I told you that only the 2 adults stickers were...
Objection, Your Honor, lady.
Let him finish the question. You said, if I told you that the sticker, go ahead.
That the 2 adult stickers were the ones that were removed, would you disagree with that or agree with that?
Objection overruled. Go ahead.
I remember somebody mentioning those at one point in time
Wait,
over the years, so it wouldn't be a surprise.
All right. I guess if you don't remember, though, you don't remember. Is that fair? You don't remember?
I don't remember exactly, no, sir. I'm sorry.
All right. So then you get arrested, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are charged with aggravated murder and many other charges, fair?
Yes, sir.
And you were charged with, I think, your aggravated murder also had a death specification on it. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You were charged with kidnapping. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Aggravated robbery,
Yes, sir.
felonious assault,
Yes, sir. I know. I remember there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Retaliation?
I was charged with.
Retaliation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tampering with evidence?
Yes, sir.
Grand theft?
Yes, sir.
Abuse of a corpse?
Yes, sir.
Possessing criminal tools?
Yes, sir.
And domestic violence.
Yes, sir.
Now, you were also charged with several other counts of murder, different versions of murder, and those counts were dismissed, but those are the ones I just read to you. Those are the ones that you were charged with and pled to. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And for that agreement, the death penalty was taken off the table. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So the plea agreement that you pled to back in 2013, it would have been, was it February 26, 2013? Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
So when you pled to those charges, the only plea agreement you had at that time was that the death specification would be taken off. Is that true?
Sort of.
Do you have some
Well,
other?
that was the only plea agreement. Yes, yes, sir.
And was I the prosecutor on that case? If you remember?
Yes, sir. I remember it was you and a Miss Burnside, if I remember right.
Okay. And other than what I've just said to you, was there any other promises made to you at that time?
Well, as long as I pled, I wouldn't lose my kids.
All right. That wasn't part of our agreement, though, right?
No, sir.
Because I had nothing to do with your kids and who would get them. Is that fair?
Yes, sir. That's fair.
To this day, has there anything changed with that plea agreement?
No, sir.
Have you been offered anything in exchange for your testimony here today?
No, sir.
Did you and I discuss whether you would be getting any favorable treatment or changes in your plea agreement if you were to testify?
It's been made very clear that nothing's going to be done for me.
So at the time, you mentioned that you took this plea and you mentioned your kids. So tell me, was there some impetus for you to plead guilty to all these charges in relation to your kids?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
Where do I begin?
Well, let's start short and then we'll follow up with any questions if we need. Hold on, Mr. Cobb. Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I know that
How much more do you think you have?
probably, I would say probably 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Let me just confirm with the ODRC to see if our time slot is ending here, or if we can have just a little bit more time.
Okay.
One moment. All right, we're just going to check very quick. Why don't you keep going
Okay.
while we confirm that? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Cobb, do you remember the question?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't.
All right. I'll repeat the question. You had mentioned that you took the plea and mentioned it in relation to your kids. I asked you,
Yes, sir.
what did you mean by that? You said, where do I start? I want you to start with a very,
Yes, sir.
the basic short answer and tell me what that had to do or how your kids were related to you accepting this plea.
Beth Judge came into the county jail when I was in there and said that if I don't plead guilty and resolve this case by every means necessary, that I will lose them. And it wasn't just that I'm going to lose them as in they're going to foster care for a second. She said that my parental rights would be severed. And it's not only me, it's going to be my parents and my grandparents. The younger ones are so young, she says everybody likes young, cute white kids, and the younger ones will probably get adopted out pretty quick, but the older ones will bounce around in the system until 18 years old. And after we've suffered with Grace, there's no way that I was going to be the one responsible for losing an entire generation of our children.
Judge, this is hearsay. Motion to strike the entire answer.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. And Mr. Cobb, why would that happen if you didn't take a plea? If you decided to take your case to trial, how would that affect what happens with your kids?
Beth Judge said that as soon as I would come up on the year anniversary date of those kids being JR6, that the state would move for permanent custody.
All right. And so
Permanent custody and our parental rights would be severed and they would lose their last names.
during that period of time, were you made aware through your attorneys that the state was interested in information in regards to Erica's involvement in the events leading up to, during, and following Ashley's death?
Yes, I was. Yes, they did.
And did that play a factor at all in you accepting or pleading to all these charges?
Yes, it did.
Why did that
I
factor?
remember
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I remember Adam Van Hotel, and he was an attorney I had at the time,
Judge,
telling me that.
Hold on, Mr. Cobb.
Judge,
Hold on, Attorney O'Brien. Attorney Laprenzi, would you like to rephrase your question, or do you want to proceed and ask it and then address Attorney O'Brien's objection?
I guess, no, I guess we'd rather address the objection if I could.
Okay. What are you asking him, though? His motivation for why he took the plea? Haven't you asked him that?
No, I asked him prior to that about the fact that he was approached by his criminal attorneys about giving up information about Erica's involvement. He said he was, and I said, and then we were talking about, okay, so you still took the plea, and we were trying to get into how did that factor into
Right,
you taking the plea, and he's giving now the information I believe.
right. He just gave the answer. Attorney O'Brien, what's your objection specifically as it relates to this?
Judge, this is irrelevant. He pled guilty to aggravated murder, etc. He took responsibility for it, Judge. Now he's trying to evade that responsibility.
The objection is sustained. Attorney Laprenzi, you may proceed. Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Cobb, I don't know if you heard the objection is sustained, okay? So you can't answer that question. Understood? Did he freeze up? I think he's frozen. Did we lose him? Did they cut us off? Mr. Cobb, can you hear us?
Still see Mr. Myers and Miss Jones, but oh, now you're back.
Okay. So the judge,
Okay.
okay, the judge sustained the objection, so you cannot answer that question. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is it fair to say that you did not cooperate with the state in regards to Erica's involvement? Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
What did you believe would happen if you did?
That I would lose somebody else.
Because
break spousal privilege, but
No, why would you lose somebody else?
Objection.
Okay, hold on. Hold. Attorney Laprenzi, rephrase your question.
First of all, who would you lose?
probably Grace or one of the children.
All right. And how would you lose them?
I don't want to dare to think about it.
If you had
I suppose I could lose them in a number of different ways.
All right. If you were to have cooperated with the state back in 2012, what do you believe would have happened in regards to Erica?
Objection.
Sustain.
Speculation.
May we approach?
Yes, but the objection is sustained.
Understand.
He can't possibly know what would have happened had he, quote, cooperated with law enforcement at the time. He is not law enforcement. He's not the state of Ohio. He's not the prosecutor. Continue just a little bit longer. I think we have a little bit more time. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cobb, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. What did you believe would happen to Erica if you cooperated with the state?
Once again, Your Honor, objection.
I don't
Overruled.
know.
Hold on, Mr. Cobb.
Go ahead. Overruled.
All right, go ahead. Judge said you can answer.
I'm sorry.
You can answer. The judge, there was an objection and the judge overruled it. You can answer. Do you want me to ask
I
it again?
understand. I don't know what would happen to Erica. I don't know how she walked out of the police station. I don't know how she was
Objection.
allowed to
Oh,
so I don't,
hold
I
on.
don't know.
Overruled. Go ahead.
All right, I'm sorry, Mr. Cobb. Could you repeat your answer?
If I would have cooperated with the state and gave them the information that they sought, I don't know what would happen to Erica, because I can't understand why she was able to walk out of the police station the same day that we both were put in there. I mean, I got hauled off to jail and she walked right back into the home of everybody and everything that I love. So I can't explain that. I can't explain what would happen to her later. I can't figure out how this all went sideways in the first place.
Motion
All right.
to strike.
All right. Overruled.
Okay, so Mr. Cobb, during the time that you were in the vehicle behind your grandparents' barn, were phone calls made?
Yes, sir.
And who made the phone calls?
I know I made phone calls to both my parents and Mike.
And why did you call your parents?
I called my parents to ask them if they can go over to Mike's house and get him up because I needed to speak with him on the phone.
And why did you need to speak with Mike?
Somebody wanted their medicine from the medicine cabinet.
All right. So Erica takes medication that she needed.
Yes, sir.
So you called Mike to help get her medicine. Yes?
I know. Yeah, I know she wanted her medicine, and
Mike,
that's the.
Mr. Cobb,
Yes, sir.
the purpose for you calling Mike was to get him to get her medicine. Yes? It's a simple
Yes, sir.
question. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
And when we talk about Mike, what Mike are we talking about?
Mike Stefanko.
So you called Mike at 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning?
Give or take, yes, sir.
And if she needed her medicine so bad, why didn't you just drive home and get it?
I don't know, sir. I was instructed to call, so I called.
And how many times did you call Mike?
I remember it was difficult getting hold of him, so I'm sure I called more than once.
Okay. And then when you couldn't get a hold of him, that's when you got a hold of your mother.
Yes, sir.
All right. At that point in time, did you have any idea that, well, strike that. During the course of your criminal prosecution, were you ever aware that Mike and Erica started a relationship?
Yes, sir.
When were you made aware of the fact that they were having a relationship?
I don't remember exactly when. I remember the main thing was when she came to Lorraine and she was pregnant. That was kind of a solid indicator.
Well, that would be after your criminal prosecution, fair?
Yes, sir.
So prior to you pleading guilty and being sentenced, you weren't aware that she and Mike were having a relationship?
To the extent that they had, no, sir.
All right.
I don't believe so. I had suspicions, of course, but I didn't know what was going on.
All right. So it was confirmed to you when she showed up pregnant?
Yes, sir.
How long after you were sentenced did you get divorced?
I believe I started pressing for divorce in 2013. I think it was the end of 2013, I think. Fairly quickly. Maybe 14. I know it was relatively quick.
I'm sorry, just can I have a moment? After you were convicted and sent to prison, were you ever approached by Detective Hitchings? And I don't know if you can see him here. You know who Detective Hitchings is?
Yes, sir.
Were you ever approached by Detective Hitchings to see if you would cooperate with the state regarding Erica and her involvement?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember when that would have been?
2014.
And so
I remember.
Go ahead.
I remember he came up to Lake Erie Prison when I was up there, and he inquired.
So if you said it was 2014?
I believe so.
All right. So that would have been probably, if you were pled in February, it would have been probably close to a year, if not more.
Yes, sir.
And at that point, it was clear you knew that Erica and Mike were together and having a baby.
Yes, sir.
And Detective Hitchings came and asked you if you wanted to cooperate. And at that time, did you agree to cooperate or no?
I wasn't trying to be rude. The only thing I told him is that my exact words was, due to the severity of the situation, I should probably talk to an attorney.
Okay.
And just because there was too much going on at that time.
All right. And so you chose not to cooperate at that point. And then did you ever have contact with Detective Hitchings again?
Yes, sir.
And when would that have been, if you remember?
I wrote him in 2017 when I couldn't see Faith and Kai anymore. FC and KC.
All right. And then did Detective Hitchings come and talk to you?
Yes, he did.
And you gave him information at that time regarding Erica's involvement?
We spoke a little bit, yes, sir.
All right. During and before the time that you finally agreed to tell Detective Hitchings about Erica's involvement, tell us about the situation with you seeing your children.
I'm terribly sorry. Could I ask you to repeat that?
Sure, I'm sorry, I think I walked away from the mic. Can you tell us, prior to you agreeing to cooperate and tell Detective Hitchings about Erica's involvement, prior to that time, can you tell us what the visitation was like with your children?
I would see them fairly regularly. Erica would allow Mom and Dad to see them whenever she wanted, and thus doing whenever Mom and Dad had them, I'd be able to see them and, you know, make sure they're okay and everybody's good and be a dad.
And during the period of time, were you able to talk to Erica on the phone?
I stopped talking to Erica quite a long time ago.
I understand. So back in 2013 and 14, were you still talking to her?
Yeah, we still talked back then a little bit, I'm sure, but...
Okay, so
I got it.
When you talked to Erica on the phone, were you aware that those phone calls were being recorded and monitored?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. And when you talked to her on the phone, did the topics of Mike and and tools and different things of that nature come up?
I know during the divorce, I was asking Erica to just turn my property over to my parents. And so, yes, the discussion of tools and whatever property was left that wasn't sold, you know, just be passed to my dad so he could use them.
And during those conversations, was there concern by you as to who might be using those tools?
I mean, if Mike's using them, so be it. Didn't really care, but they were moving on with their lives, making their decisions. The kids were safe, and, well, what I thought was safe at the time, and just whatever was left of mine that I had, I would have rather have had it turned over to my family. I thought that was just the right thing to do.
And were you using that as leverage, or using as leverage to get Erica to give those tools to your family, the fact that you may cooperate with the state and talk about her involvement?
Judge, I'm going to object to this line.
Sir, she had my children.
Hold on, Mr. Cobb.
Hold on for one moment. Go ahead, Attorney O'Brien. Basis?
Judge, it's irrelevant. They're talking about divorce settlement here.
Attorney Laprenzi?
Your Honor, this is goes to the whole recording of Ms. Cobb and Ms. Stefanko in the motivation and how things are turning out, because they're going to obviously say that I believe they're going to defend that Mr. Cobb is making some of this up, and I'm trying to elicit the fact that there was that ultimatums back and forth using that leverage. He was using the leverage or the information he had about her, and she was using the leverage about getting, the kids would get adopted and they would lose the kids.
But you're talking about tools with him right now.
Well, right, and his leverage would have been the fact that if you don't do this, I may give information up.
All right. Well, why don't you ask him that question? Hold on. Attorney Myers? Attorney Myers? Attorney Myers, I'm sorry, is there something that you wanted to note for the record?
I'm sorry?
Was there anything you wanted to note for the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, ask him about the tools, Attorney Laprenzi.
All right, thank you,
Be more
Judge.
specific.
Yes.
Thank you. I had a hard time following that question. Go
I
ahead.
understand. Okay, Mr. Cobb,
Yes, sir.
Did you use, as leverage against Erica, the fact that you would tell the state or Detective Hitchings information about Erica's involvement in Ashley's death if she didn't do things that you told her, such as giving your tools to your parents?
No, sir.
Did she express to you on those phone calls any concerns about you turning her in?
Objection.
Sustain.
Can we approach?
Are you asking on the jail calls?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Lay the foundation for that then, would you please?
On the same jail calls that you were making that were monitored and recorded while you were in jail, did Erica ever express to you concern that you were going to turn or tell the detective or the state more information about her involvement in Ashley's death?
You want to object to that? All right, overruled. Go ahead.
I know throughout the years when I would talk to Erica.
That wasn't the question. Attorney Lorenzi was specifically asking you about those jail calls. Attorney Lorenzi, go ahead.
Chad, when you said throughout the years, are you talking about throughout the years while you were in prison?
You asked him about those jail calls, though. Be very specific, okay?
Yes. Mr. Cobb, we're only talking about conversations you had with Erica on the phone while you were in prison. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I do. Yes.
All right. So is that what you're referring to when you say throughout the years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We just need to be sure. Okay. So throughout the years that you were in prison, when you talked to her on the phone, what happened?
Hold on. Attorney Lorenzi, ask him a specific question.
We were talking about the fact...
He could go, to be fair to Attorney O'Brien, he could go for 2 hours with that.
Okay, Mr. Cobb, I think the original question I asked you was on the phone calls, any phone calls that you made with Erica while you were in prison, did she express to you a concern that you would turn over evidence to us regarding her involvement in Ashley's death?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about those conversations. Well, pick one and tell us about it.
When I was in prison, using those phones, talking.
Hold on for 1 second. Attorney O'Brien, go ahead.
May I have a continuing objection with this line of questioning?
Yes, you can. Noting your objection to any discussions that he had with Ms. Stefanko when he was on recorded jail or ODRC phone calls. We'll note your objection. Your objection is overruled. Attorney Lorenzi, though, let's ask specific questions so the record's clear. Go ahead.
How many times did she express those concerns to you, again, while you were in prison on jail phone calls?
Multiple occasions. Anytime I asked her to do the right thing and turn herself in, I'd always get a lot of blowback.
And why did you want her to turn herself in?
Because I think it's the right thing to do.
Where did you and Erica live during your marriage?
The residence on Mount Eaton. Short time we lived at a rental home in Akron on Mapledale Avenue.
And do you know who's living in that home currently?
Mapledale Avenue.
No, I'm sorry, Mount Eaton.
Mount Eaton, I believe Mike resides there with LS and AS.
And so after you were put in prison, Mike moved into your home?
Yes, sir.
Objection, relevant,
Sustained.
motion to strike.
Granted.
The fact that you are aware of Mike's residence, has that played any factor in you testifying against Erica?
No, sir.
Your Honor, may I just consult with Mr. O'Brien for a second?
Sure. We have actually until 3:45. They've given us 20 more minutes, so you're free to proceed until 3:45.
Your Honor, at this point in time, I was going to conclude by asking Mr. Cobb to identify the individual he's been discussing and referring to as Erica, Lyon, and Stefanko. I've discussed that with Mr. O'Brien, and because of the technology and the screens, obviously, I can't ask him to pick her out of the courtroom. He only has whoever's in front of the camera.
Sure. And I
so
think you've
Mr.
had 2 witnesses already identify her.
I have, but
Yeah.
I need to have him identify her as the person that was with him during the crimes.
Oh, okay.
So Mr. O'Brien is going to stipulate that the person he's been referring to is in fact his client, the defendant.
Attorney O'Brien?
So stipulated, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Attorney LaPrenzi, any other questions for your direct examination?
Thank you. No, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Cobb, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're going to conclude your testimony here today. Did you hear me say that?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you okay now.
Oh, good. I'm glad you can hear me okay. What we're going to do is we're going to recess with your testimony today, and I know we still have Attorney Myers with us. We will reconvene with your testimony tomorrow for cross-examination at 1 o'clock. The ODRC has been gracious enough to allow us to do that. Attorney Myers, we will reconvene tomorrow for the conclusion of his testimony at 1 p.m. Mr. Cobb, you are not permitted to discuss your testimony with anyone or any of the statements that you have made under oath. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Attorney Myers, then we are scheduled to conclude his testimony tomorrow at 1 p.m.
That works.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I appreciate both of your time here today. Anything that the state would like to note for the record in front of Attorney Myers or Mr. Cobb at this time?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Attorney O'Brien?
Your Honor, a quick technical question. Should I just now hit that leave meeting button?
I'll take care of that in just one moment, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
All righty.
Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, then we're going to take our afternoon recess. And then I think, as I indicated to you, we will conclude today, I think, with the cross-examination of Ms. Cobb. It's 3:30. We're going to take a 15-minute recess at this time. I'll have my staff. There's Ms. Kroll here to help you. So we'll take that recess. We will sanitize the courtroom. We'll see you back in Judge McLaughlin's courtroom at 3:45, and we'll bring you promptly in. Remember, you're not allowed to discuss the case, have contact with anyone about the case, do any independent research, and we'll see you back in about 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
All right, all rise.